What's the closest you've come to dying in your life? Crashed my motorcycle and bounced into the oncoming lane. Luckily the oncoming dump truck had really good brakes. No kidding. Where I stopped and where he stopped, the front left tire was less than 2 feet from running right over the middle of me. That would have been an unpleasant way to go. How did your crash occur? I was going around a curve, and on the other end the highway department had cut a strip across the road to access a pipe underneath, and so it was just a strip all the way across the road of loose sand. Hit it. Lost traction. Bike slid right out from under me. Street parking on a busy street. I must have been about 19 or 20. I was in the backseat of my brother's 2-door car while my mom was inside the house to visit my grandfather and uncle. I got out because she was taking too long. A couple minutes later, there was a loud crash out front. My brother's car was on the curb of the outdoor seating area of the restaurant next door. A drunk driver had hit my brother's car, and had it not been for his car, those people sitting there would have been badly injured. Also in that same house, my cousin lined up a row of unlit matches under my mom and I had shared a bedroom door one night. My mother asked her to move out a day later. Edit. Wow. This blew up like crazy. So, the house was my grandparents' wedding gift. If it was still standing, it would be over 100 years old. At various times, a varying amount of family members would be living there, and at this point it was my grandmother, mother, 2 uncles when not in jail, my brother and me. I was between 16 and 19, and my cousin was in her 30s. Probably, since we were far apart in age, we never did much together, and I didn't really even know her. Yes, my cousin, my mother's niece, was mentally unwell. She had some issues with drugs and mental instability. My uncle, her father, was in jail at the time, so my mom let her stay because she was struggling and on the verge of being homeless. She would do odd things that were questionable, like cleaning in the middle of the night. My uncle did things like that too, talking and laughing to herself, and eating our food in unusual combinations, cans of corn, okra and tomatoes. My mom and I slept in the same room because by then, my mom was worried about her safety. We slept with the door locked as well, and she had talked to my cousin about her odd behavior a couple of times. So we woke up one morning and saw the matches. When we opened the door, the matches were the old wooden matches that you can strike anywhere, lined up next to each other under the door. If you lit one, that door would have went up like a candle. Old house that's mostly wood. I don't remember if any of them were burned, though. That was some scary shit. We didn't even hear anything when all this happened. My mom told her she had to leave, and I don't know where she went to live after that. I don't think I saw her again after that. She passed away in maybe 2004 or 2005. She needed a kidney transplant, but died waiting for one. Back when I lived in Mexico, when I was 15 or so, there was a time when it rained pretty badly. I was alone in the house, as my brother and mother were in the United States to buy a few things. The rain was so bad that it flooded the entire neighborhood. It has never been that bad, and I had no choice but to carry my puppy and abandon the house. When I went outside, it was like a river. There had been floods, but that bad. The water almost reached my chest, and the current was so strong that I almost got carried away. It didn't help because I was carrying the puppy with my other arm. Somehow, I managed to make it about 3 blocks south, in which there was a hill. Me and my puppy were invited to stay over at a house up there, something everyone was doing, as I wasn't the only one in trouble. When I went back to the house the next day, my brother and mother were there, and the house was ruined. Walls collapsed, furniture destroyed, and water up about 2 feet high. Luckily, no one was inside then, and I don't know of anyone that was severely injured, which is good. And, luckily, the Mexican government gave every affected household a new house. It turns out that the reason the flood was that bad was because a dam broke, and it caused a sudden flow of water. That's the closest I've come to dying, and it was terrifying, but I'm just glad I was able to keep my composure the whole time. Edit. Just weird spacing. Death by water is terrifying. The first time I was ever at the beach, I was about 15 and got caught in a riptide. 100% would have died if my big ass marine brother-in-law hadn't rescued me. I'll walk along the beach but never again go swimming in it. Brain aneurysm ruptured. I was on a ventilator for a week in a medically induced coma following the neurosurgery. That's the thing I'm scared of the most, because it can happen to anyone unexpectedly. Got robbed when I was getting off a bus for my backpack and my skateboard. Got sucker punched and stabbed in the head while they were cutting off my backpack. Didn't even take my wallet. Same. Got robbed attempted at gunpoint outside a Piggly Wiggly when I was like 16. I was with my brother-in-law at the time leaving the store. Brother-in-law starts laughing at him for some reason which makes me laugh, and the guy just runs off. That was a weird ducking day. I still don't know why the duck I started laughing like that. Maybe the weapon was fake and the brother-in-law noticed. Probably the time I was outside of a club in SF and decided to defend a woman who was being attacked. Was able to injure him enough for him to run away, but 5 minutes later he turned the corner with a gun pointed at us. I was sloshed and had no idea, but the woman I defended grabbed my arm and pulled me inside the club and slammed the door shut. We stayed long enough for the cops to come. Only street fight I've ever been in, and only one I'll ever be in. Even if you win, it's just not worth it. I ended up breaking my hand punched with bad form, and the woman who was attacked had an injured neck for months. But we are alive. I don't disagree with your statement that it's not worth it, but I have a feeling if you hadn't intervened, it would be terrible to carry that with you for the rest of your life. Thank you for risking your own life to protect another. I was climbing up a brick enclosed grill as a child by myself. We used to play on it all the time. I got to the top and a brick came loose. I ended up falling down and landing headfirst on the brick. It split my head wide open, and I would have bled to death if someone hadn't been walking down the sidewalk that knew my family. They picked me up and carried me down the road to my family, who then rushed me to the hospital. What? How high was that grill? The grill itself wasn't very high. It was encased in brick and had a chimney for the smoke. That's the part we would climb. I was pretty young when it happened, and it was torn down before I returned to that area as an adult, so I can't give a for sure height on it. 5-6 feet maybe. Alcohol-induced simultaneous heart, lung, and kidney failure. Last year I was in a head-on collision with a semi-truck. I lost my left leg, broke my neck in 3 places, 26 other bone fractures. Fast forward 1 year 9 months in the hospital and 24 surgeries. I'm able to think and type this. Edit. Just want to say thanks for all the love. Life has sure been heck, but it's nice to have the support from so many people I don't even know. Thank you. My parents told me that our refugee camp in Thailand was bombed by the Viet Cong. According to a Wikipedia entry, 18 civilians died from the Viet Cong raid, but the official count excludes infants that were shot and killed overnight in a hidden cave my parents were hiding in, along with dozens of other families. My parents said a lot of babies were killed for crying that night because they were too loud and would alert soldiers in the act of genocide and war. For some reason, at the age of 2 months, I did not make a single sound. We were spared. This is the copy-paste entry from Wikipedia. 23 the 27th of January, Dong Ruck and Sun Ro camps shelled. 18 civilians were killed. 56 population of 23,000 fled to Site A. 57 link. Edit. Whoa. Thanks everyone. I just came to say I'm gonna watch that MASH episode you've all posted. Please always be grateful for the life you have. This has been the most intense to read by far. For me. What are the odds of a 2-month-old baby not crying once through the night? Thank God. Funny you should ask. I'm currently in the hospital for anemia. I've been feeling really run down. Running out of breath easily. Couldn't sustain physical exertion. Then one night my feet swelled up to unusual size. So first thing the next day I booked a doctor's appointment. Doc took some blood. Ran some tests. The usual. He called me a few hours ago at about 9:30 p.m. and told me that my iron levels were the lowest he had ever seen, and he was amazed I was even conscious. Now I'm sitting with an 4th in my arm getting 3 units of blood transfusion. All the doctors and nurses have been oohing and ahhing at me all night. Apparently I'm quite the oddity. Similar happened to me October of 2020. Hemoglobin was 6. Should have been over 14. Had to have blood transfused. Was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. 90% of my bone marrow was cancerous. I'm currently in Houston at MD Anderson Cancer Center preparing for a stem cell transplant to fight it. 0/10 do not recommend. Edited for typo. Still recovering from it. Car accident happened in August. Business trip to Dallas, Texas. From what the police report said, the co-worker driving me ran a red light. We were hit by a Sprinter van at 50 mph and were slammed into a guardrail. Broke 7 ribs, collarbone, punctured lung, and fractured 2 vertebrae in my neck. Luckily I'm going to make a full recovery, but I have another month in a neck brace. Everyone else involved had minor injuries. Dealing with workers' comp has been a nightmare. Ruptured ectopic pregnancy leading to massive blood loss. Did not enjoy. Do not recommend. I was walking on some boulders at the end of the beach before I got hit by a rogue wave and rolled down sharp barnacles for about 10 seconds. I swam back to shore safely and went to the hospital. Luckily I had no broken or fractured bones. Less than a week later 2 guys got knocked down the exact same way and one of them ended up dying. I'm an industrial high voltage electrician. There's been several incidents. Hypothermia when I was hiking alone in the middle of December and I slipped and tore a muscle in my leg. By the time I got home, based off my symptoms, I was hours away from death. Gotta admit, not a terrible way to go. I mean, it sucks at first, but after a bit, not bad. My brother used to have a 12 gauge shotgun that he would keep loaded and with the safety off in the corner of his room. Keeping your gun loaded and ready to go isn't an unheard of thing, but you should only be doing that when the weapon is stored in a safe or hidden compartment near your bed. So I obviously wasn't keen on him just having it propped up there. One day, my good friend came over to the house. He was never really raised around guns, so he was always intrigued by them. Well, this day, he picked it up and pointed it right at my head. He is laughing and joking around. He thought it was cool. Well, as I stand there with the barrel at my head, I got the urge to duck immediately. When I did that, I screamed, "It's loaded. It's loaded." He looked like he saw a ghost and immediately broke down. He said he was fractions of a second from pulling the trigger. He started crying and hugging me and proclaiming, I'm sorry, I had no idea." It was one of those things I laughed about in the moment because I was just 16 years old and felt invincible. It wasn't until I got older that it really started to haunt me. There's nights I lay in bed with chills thinking about how different everyone's life would have been had I not had that urge. Some real butterfly effect shit. Moral of the story is both parties were negligent in handling a firearm. My friend should have never pointed it at me, even if he knew it was unloaded. And my brother should have never left a loaded firearm unattended. Don't make the same mistake. I had a friend once. He showed off his new pistol at a party and accidentally shot himself in the head and died. His head exploded. Don't play around with guns, please. When I was around 8 or so, I was walking home from school alone. I was about a couple of houses away. A truck suddenly pulled off the road in front of me. I was walking on the side of the road towards oncoming traffic, so this person had to cross the lane of traffic to do so. The door opened and paused. All I saw was an arm with a glove on. Fight or flight kicked in, and I immediately yelled, "Hi mom," and started to wave. Now I was a latchkey kid. There was no way my mom was home. As I walked past, I started to then run in a dead sprint. I was about 2 houses away. The door suddenly shut. The truck then sped off. To this day, had I not yelled, I know I would have been on a milk carton or some pedo psychopath's toy. I never knew I was allergic to something, or even if it's allergies to begin with. One night I was sleeping, and my throat swelled up in my sleep and I stopped breathing. I woke up panicking, not knowing what was happening. I was gasping for air on the floor and somehow rushed to the bathroom. I used my fingers to open my throat from my mouth to breath. Turns out my uvula expanded to 5 times its size. This lasted for 2 hours or so. I still don't know what I ate and what I'm allergic to for that to happen. Me and my buddy were like 22. We decided after work to drive about 400 km to reach the sea after 14 shifts. We fall asleep 2 times during drive. We survived and never again drove being so tired. Never again. I stopped breathing while undergoing a heart procedure. Just inhale, bro. Deciding to tell my dad I wanted to kill myself instead of drowning myself that Friday. Heading home by myself from a softball game late one night. Light turns green for me to go, and I hear a voice that said wait. I freeze because it freaked me out, and next thing I know, a dump truck blows through the red light and is getting chased by cops. Wold hit me on the driver's side and may have killed me with how fast he was going. When I laid across a train track and ended up changing my mind and moved just in time before the train came.